Welcome back to Good Morning Nueva York. If you're just joining us, I'm King Downey, and your host, and we'll be here till 7 a.m. Michael G. Haskins is engineering in studio. In the background, Heroes by the Commodores, because we are celebrating Black History Month. This is our second show. And we have a story about some heroes, and it's at a theater near you. It's called, well, let me get to this first. Another true story like we had in the first half. Two world-class sprinters are headed for Olympic glory when their controversial college professor challenges them to speak out against racism. To bring world attention to racism in this country, they must win Olympic medals. And after doing this, their silent protest rocked the world and led to one of the greatest photographs of the 20th century. The writer of this play, the director, and a cast member join us. We'll be giving away tickets, and we'll be taking your calls, so don't go anywhere. Name of the play is When Gold Turns Black, and it's at the Theater for the New City. I'll describe the dates and times for you a little bit later. Joining us is Count Stovall, who is the director of When Gold Turns Black. Good morning, Count.
Good morning, King. How are you?
I'm great. We also have Ron Wilks, who is the playwright. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for having us.
And last but not least, we have Dimitri Jr., who plays one of the iconic sprinters. And I'm not naming that person yet, but we will unveil them if you don't know already. Good morning, Dimitri.
Good morning. Good morning. How you doing?
I'm great. So, Count, before we even get into talking about the play, tell us about your storied trajectory as an actor and director. It's really an honor to have you here, all of you. Count goes back.
Well, the reason he says I go back is because as I'm entering my 80th year and 60 years performing as an actor and a director, I've certainly been around a while and worked with some of the great icons of theater past and present. I don't claim to be a young man anymore, but I'm still at it. Done shows on Broadway like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and Old Philadelphia Story, Innocent Black, and many other shows. And I'm just so glad and proud to be working with young people and young, wonderful writer like Ron Wilks and actors and actresses, Dimitri Jr. and Leon Alexander, Hyatt, Ryan Patterson, Jeffrey Ross, Alechi Undenko, Jess Washington. These are all our cast members in Gold Turns Black at the Theater for the New City, which is a exceedingly exciting play that's so wonderful. Is attended every night. I just go every night and see it over and over and over again. And I'm very happy to be on the show here with King Downey and WBAI. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel the same way. I've seen it twice. So, Ron Wilks, out of all the stories, how did you come upon this one? And then how did you decide to take it on?
Well, this goes back, I thank Count for speaking about me being a young. I reminded him that when this incident, I should say, actually happened in 1968 in Mexico City, Mexico, I was 7 years of age, so I was born. And I just have a vivid memory of the hush in the room when when my family was watching it on television. And I was a young child, but I could tell something had changed. It wasn't as powerful as, obviously, when Dr. King was assassinated, but it was still a moment that resonated with me as a young child and, not understanding it, but I knew something was different. So you fast forward to, I'd say, roughly about 2018, as I started looking for storylines for writing assignments, I stumbled upon the picture online, and it just piqued my curiosity at that moment. I'm like, what happened to these guys? And then, it's like, what happened to them to even have this photograph taken to raise the black fist, and what happened to them afterwards? And there was born When Gold Turns Black, because I just started reading everything that I could find on John Carlos, Tommie Smith, Harry Edwards, countless videos and documentaries, and I was just blown away by their courage at such young ages, just totally blown away that they would have the mindset and to care enough to, actually stand up there and do that as supporting, all the atrocities that have happened to young black men in the country during 1968, and women.
You're listening to WBAI 99.5 FM in New York City, streaming live and available on demand at WBAI.org. The program is Good Morning Nueva York. I'm your host, King Downey. We'll be here till 7 a.m. Michael G. Haskins is engineering. And we're talking about the production, especially now as we celebrate Black History Month, When Gold Turns Black, a play about Tommie Smith and John Carlos, the two Olympic sprinters who on the medal stand raised their fists and drew the world's attention to racism in this country. We're going to open up the phone lines. Do you remember this situation? Did you hear about it? Were you young or not born yet? And did you hear about it? What do you think of the idea of black athletes speaking out against racism on the world stage or elsewhere? They just played the Super Bowl, and the first thing that comes to mind is Colin Kaepernick taking a knee during the season, which called attention to continued racism, but also led him to be kicked out of the league. So this is a station that, let me give the listener line, then I'll tell you about the station. So you can call in at 212-209-2877, 212-209-2877 for your questions, comments about this play, Black History Month, anything you want to talk about. This is the WBAI Good Morning Nueva York listener line. And this listener line is brought to you by two groups of people who support this 60-plus-year-old not-for-profit, community-sponsored, and often activist and community leader, producer, and host-led programs. So thank you for that. And now we're going back to our play of the moment, When Gold Turns Black. We've heard from Count Stovall, the director, Ron Wilks, the writer. Now, let's turn to one of the cast members. Dimitri Jr. plays one of the iconic sprinters, John Carlos. So tell me what you knew about this before you got this great part.
I actually didn't know too much about the Olympic protest. I think I didn't know the narrative behind it, but I think everyone, or at least most people, have seen, the picture of Tommie and John on the medal stand, but I actually didn't know anything about the story. So being a part of the production was really, enlightening for me, just knowing what happened to the both of them. And then it just speaks to, society back then and then society now. And it just goes to show how little has changed, since then.
So there's this famous photograph. What were you able to base your character on? What was available to you?
A lot of interviews of John Carlos, a lot of them. And that's what really kind of informed me on what happened, what was going through his mind, what kind of motivated them to want to use that type of stage to be in solidarity for human rights. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Is there anything of you that went into your portrayal of John Carlos?
Absolutely, because I think within the last 4 or 5 years, I kind of started to learn and pay attention to the societal issues as it relates to Black people. So I was very invested into that topic already. So once I came across the casting for the show, and I saw the description of John Carlos, which said very headstrong, confident, the Malcolm X type, that spoke to me because I feel like inherently I already had that character within me already. So it was very natural for me to kind of portray that character, and then especially listening to John Carlos talk about certain things. And one thing in particular that I want to, one quote that he said that I want to mention is he said that all the people who made a substantial mark on this world, they were all troublemakers. So when people talk about Jesus Christ, he was a troublemaker. Gandhi was a troublemaker. Malcolm X was a troublemaker. Martin Luther King was a troublemaker. These are people who were labeled as that, but I think that's what you have to do in order to kind of create change, to create awareness.
Great. And when you saw a lot of people didn't know very much about the time leading up to the Olympics, but know almost nothing about what happened after that. Can you tell me just something? I don't want to give the story away, but can you tell me something about his later personality after going through all of this?
I think John has been able to maintain a healthy sense of humor, I guess, for a lack of better word. I don't think he grew bitter about it because we all know that more or less they weren't well received for doing that. I think that John wouldn't, if he could do it all again, he would do it all the same way because he believed that he was born on this earth to be there in Mexico City on that medal stand. So I think nothing necessarily has changed between 68 and today as far as how he views the Olympic protest, because I feel like a lesser man would have regretted such an act because of the sacrifices and consequences that came as a result of the protest. So,
one last call for call-ins. If you have any questions or comments, 212-209-2877, 212-209-2877. If you have any questions about When Gold Turns Black, I'll give the information out again. Count Stovall, the director, Ron Wilks, the writer, Dimitri Jr. plays John Carlos. And we'll be giving away tickets. Okay, we have a caller, and then after that, Count, I'm going to turn back to you. So, good morning, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? And what's your question or comment?
Hi, King. It's Russell in White Plains, and I really wanted to ask about what they're doing with the subway and Dan Penny. I'd like someday to ask you about what Bragg was doing, but I'll ask the young man who's talking, who is the troublemakers now? Because they use crime to identify what, quote, the usual suspects, and that's what the racism is about today. And the second thing is, was the Australian guy who also suffered, the white guy, was he portrayed in your play? And I'll listen to the answer. Thank you very much.
So why don't you take the first one, Dimitri, and then Ron, if you want to take the second one about the Australian. So
okay,
go ahead, Dimitri.
But I think honestly, troublemakers are very few and far between in this era, and then the ones that are around, they don't get the same type of reverence and spotlight that the troublemakers of yesterday have. And I think most people with the platforms, and I'm talking about, the entertainers, the actors, the athletes, they're not willing to kind of put their livelihood on the line for a greater cause. You know what I'm saying? I don't think a lot of them are willing to put everything on the line for something that they're not going to be really thanked for at the end of the day. So when you're asking who are the troublemakers of today, I can't really think of someone who is really challenging the status quo. To be honest, no one comes to mind at this moment.
Okay, great. So I want to give folks a chance to hear a bit of the play, and we're going to go out with a clip, one scene from When Gold Turns Black. Let's take a listen.
God damn! Man, just look at this. Ain't this some bitch? Left and right, here and there. Pictures of old white men in every hall.
They either taught here or gave money.
They need to have pictures of Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, and W.E.B. Du Bois in the main hall. As a matter of fact, every university in this country should have pictures hanging of at least 2 black people that contributed to the Negro race. You dig me?
What you're talking about doing is too risky. I can't sign up. I changed my mind.
Why change your mind now? You said you think about it.
I'm trying to get drafted by the NFL. Maybe my picture can hang here one day.
If that's all you see yourself doing, that's how people are going to treat you.
How is not going to Mexico City going to improve my life? You know how many endorsements I can get if I go and win gold?
You think they're going to put your black ass on a Wheaties box?
I don't care what you think. I'm an American and I plan to represent my country.
America doesn't represent you. Look what they're doing to Ali.
Clay should keep his big mouth shut and be thankful for the opportunity he got.
His name is Ali, my brother. Muhammad Ali. Cassius Clay is his slave name.
I don't care what his name is. He's going to lose everything he's got.
I agree with the professor. Black athletes should be willing to boycott and take a stance against the brutalization of our people.
I am sick and tired of hearing what Professor Edwards said. I think for myself, and you need to do the same.
If Dr. King had you boycotted in Alabama, you'd still be riding the back of the bus. So don't tell me boycotts don't work.
If you go over there and win a gold medal, you got a better chance of changing things here when you get back.
What good did that gold medal do Ali?
So there's a taste of one of the scenes, and what I'll just say is that John and Tommie are role-playing for Harry Edwards, the professor, to prepare for what the kind of onslaught they're going to face. So that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you to our guests from When Gold Turns Black. It's at the Theater for the New City. Started January 30th, runs to February 16th. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday shows. Go to Theater for the New City website. And if you email me now, King at WBAI, we'll have some tickets for you. Look at the shows and see which ones you're interested in. We'll see if we can match you up with some tickets. Thanks, Count Stovall, Ron Wilks, and Dimitri for this play, for this Black History Month celebration, and for joining me this morning.